Welcome to our latest episode of Sunday Night Mystery. This is the case of Amelia Dyer. Is she the world's most evil serial killer? Tonight, we delve into the chilling tale of one of history's most notorious criminals. I'm Brett. I'm your host for this latest gruesome adventure, and tonight, we're back in Bristol, exploring the horrifying story of Amelia Elizabeth Hobley, later known as Amelia Dyer. Often regarded as the most prolific female serial killer of all time. Amelia Hobley was born in Pall Marsh, just east of Bristol, here in the United Kingdom, in 1837. Born the youngest of 5 children, she was the daughter of master shoemaker Samuel Hobley and his wife Sarah. Amelia learned to read and write, developing a love of literature and poetry. However, her childhood was marred by the mental illness of her mother, caused by typhus. After her mother's death, Amelia lived with an aunt in Bristol for a time before serving an apprenticeship with a corset maker. Her father died in 1859 when she moved into lodgings in Bristol's Trinity Street. There, she met and married George Thomas. George was 59 and they both lied about their ages on the marriage certificate to reduce the age gap. George dropped 11 years and Amelia added 6 to hers. After marrying George Thomas, Amelia trained as a nurse, although following discussions with midwife Ellen Dane, she discovered a much easier way to earn a living. She could use her own home to provide sanctuary for women who had conceived illegitimately, then rehoming the babies for adoption. It was common during the Victorian period for unmarried mothers to become desperate. The Poor Law Amendment Act was passed in 1834, meaning the mother of an illegitimate child should receive little support. It was also decided that authorities would no longer attempt to identify the fathers of illegitimate children, and the law removed any financial obligation. It was argued that generous payments for illegitimate children indemnified the mother against failure to marry. This led to the practice of baby farming, where individuals acted as adoption agents in return for payments from the baby's mothers. Many businesses were formed to take in these young women in order to care for them until they gave birth. The mothers would then leave their unwanted babies to be looked after as so-called nurse children. The parents involved were exploited for pure financial gain. Mothers who chose to reclaim or simply check on the welfare of their children could often encounter difficulties, but some would simply be too frightened or ashamed to tell the police about any suspected wrongdoing. Even the authorities often had problems tracing children that were reported missing. Amelia gave birth to a daughter, Ellen Thomas. In 1869, the elderly George Thomas died, and Amelia needed an income. Recently widowed and with a daughter to support, she began advertising her services in 1869, beginning with local newspapers. Married couple with no family would adopt healthy child, nice country home. Terms, £10. Amelia soon realised that instead of providing nurturing care, there was an opportunity for profit in the vulnerability of these infants. She began a twisted enterprise, taking in babies, promising to find them loving homes. However, rather than fulfilling her promise, she systematically murdered each and every helpless infant in her care. In 1872, Amelia married William Dyer, a brewer's labourer from Bristol. They had 2 children known as Polly and William Samuel. Amelia Dyer travelled from homes in Bristol and Reading, selling her gruesome services to as far afield as Liverpool and Plymouth, charging between £10 and £80, the equivalent to around £1,000 and £8,000 today. Dyer's preferred method of murder was often suffocation or strangulation. Once the innocent lives were extinguished, she would dispose of the bodies, frequently dumping them in the murky waters of the River Thames. Social conditions within Victorian England enabled Dyer to continue her evil business for almost 30 years. Her crimes went undetected, as the deaths of the infants were not always properly investigated. High infant mortality rates were a sad reality of Victorian life, meaning early deaths often escaped authorities. She moved frequently, changing locations to avoid suspicion and continuing her deadly enterprise. The parents truly believed they were sending their child to a happy home, one full of promise, possibilities. In reality, the only possibility was death. Her luck briefly ran out in 1879 when doctors became sceptical over the number of deaths certified in her care, and she was sentenced to 6 months hard labour for neglect. After a brief spell in Cardiff, she relocated to Reading in 1895, realising her mistake of involving doctors to issue death certificates. It proved much simpler to dispose of the bodies in the River Thames. But it was that led to her downfall. In March 1896, Dyer's reign of terror came crashing down when a package containing a body was discovered by a Reading bargeman in the Thames. It contained the body of a baby girl, later identified as Helen Fry. Detective Constable Anderson of Reading Borough Police made a crucial breakthrough. As well as finding a label from Bristol Temple Meads railway station, he analysed the wrapping paper, deciphering a faint but legible name. The name of Amelia Thomas and her address. Fearing Dyer might abscond if she came under suspicion, the police set up a decoy to secure a meeting with her to discuss the services she offered. On the 3rd of April 1896, police raided the home of Amelia Dyer, and although they found no human remains, they did find the stench of human decomposition. They discovered a huge amount of evidence, from children's clothes to telegrams regarding adoption arrangements, pawn tickets from children's clothing, receipts for advertising, and letters from desperate mothers inquiring to the well-being of their children. The rate of murder suggested to police that in the previous months alone, at least 20 children had been placed in the care of Mrs. Thomas, now revealed to be Amelia Dyer. Dyer was arrested on the 4th of April. Her son-in-law, Arthur Palmer, was charged as an accessory. During April, the Thames was dredged, revealing 6 more bodies. Each baby had been strangled with white tape. Dyer later told police, "It's how you can tell it's one of mine." At an inquest into the deaths, Dyer's daughter and son-in-law were both discharged, following a confession where, on the 16th of April, 1896, Amelia Dyer admitted to her gruesome killings. On the 22nd of May, Amelia Dyer appeared at the Old Bailey to plead guilty to one murder, that of Doris Marmon. Dyer's defence was insanity. She'd been committed to asylums in Bristol twice, and the prosecution successfully argued this is just a ploy to avoid suspicion. It took the jury just 4.5 minutes to find her guilty. During the trial, Dyer shocked the courtroom by confessing to the murders of between 300 and 400 infants. The true extent of her crime sent shockwaves through the nation. On Wednesday, June the 10th, 1896, at 9 a.m, Amelia Dyer, having been found guilty of murder and sentenced to death by hanging, was executed by James Billington at Newgate Prison. Asked if she had any final words, she said, "I have nothing to say." She met her end on the gallows, her crimes forever marking her as one of history's most chilling serial killers. It's uncertain just how many more children Amelia Dyer murdered. Inquiries from mothers, evidence of witnesses and material found in Dyer's homes pointed to many more innocent lives ended by this cruel human being. The Dyer case caused scandal. The Ogress of Reading caused adoption laws to become much stricter, and local authorities the power to police baby farms in the hope of stamping out abuse. Despite this, the trafficking and abuse of infants did not stop. 2 years after Dyer's execution, railway workers found a parcel when inspecting carriages. Inside this, a 3-week-old girl, cold and wet, but she was alive. The daughter of a widow called Jane Hill. She'd given the baby to a Mrs. Stewart for a sum of £12. This Mrs. Stewart had collected the baby from Plymouth and simply dumped her on the next train. It's been claimed Mrs. Stewart was in fact Polly, the daughter of Amelia Dyer. In the annals of Victorian crime, the name of Amelia Dyer would become synonymous with horror and depravity. Her trial captivated the public imagination, shining a harsh light on the darkest corners of society, yet, even as she stood condemned, her true motives remained shrouded in mystery. Was she driven by madness? Or was she simply a cold-blooded killer, masquerading as a caring mother? The answers died with her on the gallows, her final moments haunted by the spectre of her own crimes. In death, Amelia Dyer left behind a legacy of terror and tragedy, a chilling reminder of the depths to which humanity can sink when driven by greed and desperation. As the years passed, her name would fade into obscurity, a footnote in the annals of history, but the echoes of her crimes would linger on, a grim reminder of the fragility of innocence in a world stained by darkness. The case of Amelia Dyer serves as a chilling reminder of the depths of human depravity and the tragic consequences of unchecked greed and exploitation. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Sunday Night Mystery. Tune in next week as we uncover more tales of darkness lurking within the human soul. Don't forget, check out our supporter page at patreon.com/Sunday Night Mystery. I'm Brett, and I'll see you next week on Sunday Night Mystery. Until then, stay curious, stay vigilant, and remember, guard yourself against the darkness that surrounds us all. I'll see you next week on Sunday Night Mystery.